The worst birthday. It wasn't the first time that there had been a fight at the breakfast table at number 4, Privet Drive. Mr. Vernon Dudley had been awakened in the early hours of the morning by a loud hoot coming from Harry, his wife's nephew, and as he ate breakfast he had shouted angrily and indignantly. "This is the third time this week that you can't keep him quiet. If you can't keep him quiet, you have no right to keep him here." Harry tried to explain again, and said, "He's tired. He used to be free and could fly wherever he wanted. If I could just set him free at night." Uncle Vernon, a bit of white hair hanging from his thick mustache, said angrily, "What do you think? I don't know what will happen if you set him free." Uncle Vernon and his wife Petunia exchanged looks with saddened faces. Harry tried to come up with a convincing argument, but Dudley's long, drawn-out belch cut him off. Dudley said, "I want ham again." Aunt Petunia looked at the big boy and said, "It's in the pan, my dear. We've got to get you some while we can. I've heard they don't feed the kids properly at school." Uncle Vernon said sincerely, "Don't listen to that, Petunia. It's all crap. When I was at smelting school, I never went hungry. Dudley gets enough to eat there, doesn't he, son?" Dudley, who was so fat that his thighs were sticking out of his seat, chuckled and said to Harry, "Give me the pan." Harry said, offended, "You forgot the magic word again." The effect of this simple sentence on the family was incredible. Dudley's breath caught in his chest and he fell to the floor with a terrible sound that shook the house. Mrs. Dudley screamed and put her hand over her mouth. Mr. Dudley, a vein bulging in his temple, jumped. Harry said immediately, "I meant the word please. I didn't mean to." Uncle Vernon, who was spitting on the table with anger as he spoke, shouted, "Didn't I tell you you weren't allowed to use the word please in this house? Speak up?" "But what?" Uncle Vernon slammed his fist on the table angrily. "How dare you threaten Dudley? Didn't I warn you? Didn't I tell you not to say a single word of that strange talk in this house?" Harry looked up from his aunt's flushed face to his aunt's pale face as she helped Dudley up. Okay. Uncle Vernon leaned back in his chair, his small, sharp eyes watching Harry, breathing like a tired rhinoceros. Ever since Harry had returned home for the summer holidays, Uncle Vernon had treated him as if he were a time bomb that could explode at any moment, because Harry was not an ordinary boy. In fact, he was more than ordinary. Harry Potter was a wizard and had just finished his first year at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Although the Slytherins were not particularly pleased to have Harry back for the holidays, their disappointment was nothing compared to the longing for him. The distance from Hogwarts was like a chronic, constant pain that tormented his being. He missed the castle with its secret passages and ghosts, the classrooms, not Snape's, the potions masters, the letters that the owls brought, the magnificent banquets in the school's great hall 4. His curtained bed in the tower dormitory was used to meeting Hagrid, the school's huntsman, in his hut on the edge of the Forbidden Forest, and most of all he missed playing Quidditch, the most popular sport in the wizarding world, a sport with 6 high goals, 4 flying balls, and 14 players on flying broomsticks. As soon as Harry arrived at the Dursleys' house, Uncle Vernon hid Harry's magic books, wand, school robes, cauldron, and, most importantly, Nimbus 2000, Harry's unique flying broomstick, in a storage room under the stairs. What did it matter to the Sullies that Harry's membership of the school Quidditch team was in jeopardy due to a lack of practice? What did it matter to the Sullies that Harry had to return to school without doing his homework? The Dursleys were among those whom wizards called muggles, people who had no magical blood in their veins. To muggles, even having a wizard relative was considered a disgrace. Uncle Vernon had even imprisoned Harry's owl, Hedwig, in his cage to prevent Harry from communicating with anyone in the wizarding world. Harry was unlike any other member of his family. Uncle Vernon was a large man with a short neck and a thick black mustache. Aunt Petunia was a thin, bony woman with a long horse face. Dudley was also blonde and plump, with ruddy skin. But Harry was small and thin, with bright green eyes and raven black hair that was always unkempt. He wore round-rimmed glasses and a small, delicate scar on his forehead, shaped like a lightning bolt. It was this scar that distinguished Harry even among wizards, the only reminder of his mysterious past. It was this scar that had caused his death 11 years ago. Harry was placed on the steps of the Dursleys' house. At the age of 1, Harry had miraculously survived the curse of Lord Voldemort, the greatest evil wizard of the century, whose name still sent shivers down the spines of most witches and wizards. Harry's parents had died in Voldemort's attack, but Harry had suffered no other injury than a lightning-like wound on his forehead. No one knew why Voldemort had lost all his power and authority the moment he failed to kill Harry. Thus, Harry's late mother's sister and his aunt's husband took him into their care. In the 10 years he had spent with the Dursleys, he had not known why he had been causing strange things to happen without any intention or intention, because he had believed the Dursleys' story that the wound on his forehead had been caused by a car accident that had killed his parents. Exactly 1 year ago, he had received a letter from Hogwarts, and the whole truth had been revealed to him. Harry had gone to the wizarding school, where his name and the scar on his forehead were already well known. But at the end of the school year, he had returned to the Dursleys' house to spend the summer holidays with people who treated him like a dog with a bad smell. The Dursleys hadn't even remembered that it was Harry's 12th birthday. Of course, Harry hadn't expected much from them, since they had never given him anything special, apart from a dry, empty cake, but he hadn't expected them to ignore his birthday completely. At that moment, Uncle Vernon's face turned serious, cleared his throat, and said, "Well, as we all know, today is an important day." Harry looked up in disbelief, and Uncle Vernon continued, "Today is the day of the most profitable deal of my life." Harry, discouraged, resumed his toast and realized that Uncle Vernon was talking about the stupid dinner party that night. He had been thinking about nothing else for 2 weeks. That night, a wealthy contractor and his wife were staying at the Slice, and Uncle Vernon was hoping to get an order for bread and water from him. Uncle Vernon's company manufactured drills. "How about we go over the schedule again? We're all in our seats by 8. Petunia, where are you?" Aunt Petunia said immediately, "I'll tell you. I'm supposed to be in the drawing room, welcoming them warmly when they come in." "Well done, Dudley, what's up?" Dudley smiled a fake, pathetic smile and said, "I'm supposed to wait outside the door and open it when they come in and say, 'Mr. and Mrs. Mason, let me hang up your coat.'" Aunt Petunia, who was delighted, said, "They're going to love Dudley. Well done, Dudley." Uncle Vernon then turned to Harry and said, "What about you?" Harry said impatiently, "I'll stay in my room, I won't open the door, I'm not even alive." Uncle Vernon said with a disgusted expression, "Exactly, I'll show them to the drawing room. Then I'll introduce you to them, Petunia. Then I'll pour them drinks." At 8:15. Aunt Petunia said, "I'll announce that dinner is ready. What do you say, Dudley?" "I will. I say, Mr. and Mrs. Mason, let me show you to the dining room." Dudley held out his fat hand to an imaginary Mrs. Mason as he said this. Aunt Petunia said in a nasal voice, "A piece of cloth, sir." Uncle Vernon glared at Harry and shouted, "What are you?" Harry said again impatiently, "I'll stay in my room, my voice is not coming out. It's not like I'm alive." "Right. Now we'll see how we can compliment them at dinner. Petunia, don't you have any ideas?" "How can I say, Mr. Mason, Vernon says you're a fantastic golfer." "Wow, Mrs. Mason, what a beautiful dress you're wearing." "Great. Dudley, what do you say? How about this, once when we had to write an essay about a hero at school. I wrote about you." Neither Aunt Petunia nor Harry could bear to hear this. Aunt Petunia, tears streaming down her face, hugged Dudley. But Harry, who had to suppress his laughter, hid under the table so that no one would see him. "Uncle Vernon said, what are you, boy?" Harry emerged from under the table, struggling to look serious, and repeated. I'm staying in my room, my voice won't go out. As if I'm alive, Uncle Vernon said imperiously. You must do this. Mr. and Mrs. Mason know nothing about you, understand? They must know nothing after this. Well, Petunia, after dinner you must take Mrs. Mason to the drawing room for coffee and I will turn the conversation to the drill presses. If we are lucky we will sign the contract before the 10 o'clock news and the job will be done. By this time tomorrow we will be buying a villa in Major K and we will be going there for our holidays from now on. This did not excite Harry much. He knew that the Dursleys would not see him in Major K as much as they did in Privet Drive. Uncle Vernon said. No. Well, I'll go into town and buy clothes for myself and Dudley. Then he turned to Harry and roared. And you, while your aunt is cleaning and tidying the house in front of you. Harry went out the back door. It was a beautiful sunny day. He crossed the lawn and sat down on the garden bench, muttering. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday. No cards, no presents. That night, too, he had to pretend it didn't exist. He stared helplessly at the hedge. He had never felt more alone than that day. He had missed nothing and no one more than Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger, his best friends at Hogwarts. Even Quidditch had no appeal at that moment, but it didn't seem like the feeling was mutual. Ron had said he would invite Harry to stay with them for a while, but he hadn't received a letter from either of them since the beginning of the summer. He had been tempted many times to charm Hedwig's cage door open to get a letter to Ron or Hermione, but it wasn't worth the risk. Underage wizards weren't allowed to use magic outside the school. Of course, Harry hadn't told the Slytherins, because he knew that the only thing stopping them from locking Harry up in the cellar under the stairs with his wand and broom was the fear that Harry would turn them into toilet cockroaches. For the first week or two of the holidays, Harry had mumbled incomprehensible words and amused himself by watching Dudley run away from him on his fat legs. But as he had been without Ron and Hermione for a long time, he had begun to feel alienated from the wizarding world, and Dudley's teasing had become less of a problem. Ron and Hermione had even forgotten his birthday. Harry was willing to lose everything for the slightest message from Hogwarts. It didn't matter which witch or wizard it was from. He was even happy to see Draco Malfoy, his arch-enemy, because that would make sure that his school days were not a dream. Of course, not all days at Hogwarts were happy. Harry had come face to face with Lord Voldemort himself in the last days of his final term. Although Voldemort no longer had the power and strength he had once had, he was still terrifying, still lurking, still determined to regain his power. Harry had escaped Voldemort's clutches for the second time, but this time the danger had passed him by. Even though weeks had passed since that incident, Harry still woke up from time to time at night, cold sweat on his face, remembering Voldemort's angry, bruised face with those big, crazy eyes, and he didn't know where he was or what he was doing at that moment. Suddenly Harry stood up and sat straight on the garden bench. He was staring absent-mindedly at the hedge, and the hedge was staring back at him. Two large green eyes were peeking out from between the leaves. Harry jumped at Dudley's mocking voice. Dudley, who was walking forward with short steps, said, "I know what day it is." The two green eyes closed and disappeared into the leaves of the hedge. Harry said, without taking his eyes off the hedge, "What?" Dudley stepped forward and repeated, "I know what day it is." "Well done, you finally learned the days of the week?" Dudley grinned and said, "Today is your birthday, so why hasn't anyone sent you a card? Didn't you make any friends at that strange school?" Harry said coolly, "Your mother better not find out you're talking about my school." Dudley pulled up his trousers, which had fallen below his bulging belly, and asked suspiciously, "Why were you staring at the hedge?" "I was wondering which spell would be best for setting a hedge on fire." Fear and panic immediately crossed Dudley's plump face, and he backed away, saying, "Why, you have no right. Didn't my dad say you couldn't do magic? Didn't he say if you Did he do magic, he'd throw you out of our house, then you'd have nowhere to go, you wouldn't even have friends. Harry said angrily. Gray, go ahead and get it.